On this episode of the ClearVoice MIC, we're joined by the amazing Stephanie Yoder, Director of Content over at Rebrandly. We talk solo content teams, scaling strategy, embracing the weirdness with B2B, and finding that balance between AI and content without losing your creative edge. Let's dive in. Hi everyone, I'm Taylor Moon, Director of Content here at ClearVoice, and welcome to the ClearVoice MIC. MIC being short for Marketers in Conversation. And today I'm joined by Stephanie Yoder, the Director of Content over at Rebrandly. Are you ready, Stephanie?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. So I'll be a little bit of a nerd and just kick us off that I know a little bit about you. We're connected. I follow you on LinkedIn. See all the cool things you're doing, Rebrandly's doing, but can you give us a little bit of a snippet or intro about you, who you are, and what you're doing currently?
Yeah, so I like to say I'm an accidental content marketer and that I didn't study marketing in school. Up until maybe 10 years ago, I didn't even know what content marketing was. I actually started my career as a travel blogger and travel writer. When that got a little too hard to maintain, sort of segued into content marketing, did a lot of agency work, and then ended up here at Rebrandly as director of content. You know, I'm a writer looking for a gig that actually pays, and that brought me here.
What better way can you put it than that? You know, I was kind of thinking about this too, because I feel like everyone's journey into marketing, yes, obviously people study it, but I feel like when you talk to people in the industry, we kind of are a melting pot, and we come from so many different places and wind up where we do, or have done. Even if we studied it, we've done a lot before we got there. It's kind of interesting, and you definitely fit into that, and I definitely empathize with that. I was a music journalist, and here I am, so yeah.
I think it's good, and I think it's important for being able to produce, well, content that's not boring, first of all, but also content that actually resonates with people. You have to like be a real person to do that. Not that people who only do marketing are not real people, but like having that breadth of experience really informs your work, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have to ask kind of, what led you into travel blogging? And then what made you want to make the transition elsewhere?
Yeah. So I was an English major and I graduated from college. I majored in English because I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that being a good writer would be important. And I like to read, so I figured it was kind of like cheating. It wasn't really working.
I love that. Yeah.
But I graduated. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life and ended up kind of bumming around a bit and deciding what I really wanted to do for the foreseeable future was travel. And I needed to figure out a way to fund that. And that sort of led me to using the one skill I have, which is writing. So I started writing about what I wanted to do, and to my surprise, people started reading it. And I quit my desk job in 2010 and basically was a digital nomad for 7, 8 years. Met my husband that way and had all sorts of adventures, and kind of accidentally started, I wrote for my blog and then I started writing for businesses, all B2C content, travel insurance companies and tour guide companies and things, 10 things to do in Rome and things like that. And I didn't even know that it was called content marketing at the time. I was just like, this is a way to make some money. Then, when I had my daughter, who is about to turn 9 now, it was time to settle down and not travel all the time. And I needed a job that was more dependable, steady paycheck, honestly paid more money. And that's when I sort of discovered, well, first ghostwriting. I ghost wrote books for a couple of years. And then a friend of a friend told me I should interview for this content agency that was animals. And yeah, just kind of was like, oh, all right, this is a good way to make a lot of money from writing.
And things kind of fell in line,
And
right?
things kind of fell in line, and here I am.
You kind of hit on something that I love is how this like natural progression of just doing something you're passionate about, or you're doing it, you're good at it, you're learning more, but like these opportunities occur. And essentially you began freelancing or outsourcing your expertise to others. And then it just kind of started to snowball into more opportunities. And then you were able to take that skill in-house as well, or, in an agency perspective. So, and get where you are today. So I feel like that's always good to hear. And you're actually hearing some people do the other nowadays. They're like jumping into the more outsourced and freelance side of things. So it's kind of it's
Definitely.
a healthy melting pot, I feel like now, of how people are in the content marketing realm.
Totally. I definitely learned from those experiences that freelancing is not for me. I like to roll up at work and know what to expect every day and collect my steady paycheck and take my paid time off and all of that. And like that stability is important to me at this stage in life.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel that maybe I'm stereotypical, being like, when you become a mom or something, it kind of shifts something in your brain. But I 100% feel that maybe I'm just a Capricorn level like planner where I need like I need a plan. I need something, or at least like let me build that plan.
And I found that when I could work whenever I wanted, I would work all the time.
Yeah.
So something I have learned over time is like to really have that boundary between work and life. And for a lot of my 20s, it sort of bled into each other a lot. Now I'm like, when I'm at work, I want to think about work. When I'm not at work, I don't want to think about work.
I feel that I definitely went through that as well, where you're kind of like, when do I shut it off? Wait, I should have shut it off like 3 hours ago.
Yeah.
Um,
And
little too.
that's when being a mom, I think, does play a large role in that too. It's like I want to be present for my
Yeah,
daughter.
yeah. No, I have to say, you going, you were very B2C, like you were saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Rebrandly is much more B2B.
It
So
is, yeah.
what was that shift like for you?
So I made the shift when I actually started agency work. I started at a B2B SaaS agency, and I actually had to Google what B2B and SaaS were before my interview.
Let's Google.
Yeah. And it was a shift, but I actually don't think the fundamentals are really that different because it's just about creating content that is actually helpful to people. And
Yeah,
like there's different ways to dress it up and like different formats that maybe are more appealing to a B2B audience than a B2C audience. But at the same time, you're not even in B2B, you're not writing content for businesses, right? You're writing content for people who work at businesses.
in that setting. Yes.
So it fundamentally is not that different.
I'm I'm with you. I could nerd out. At the end of the day, you're going back to the principles of what is the branding, right? And
Yeah.
what's the target audience? Who are we speaking to? How are we speaking to them?
What
Why?
do they need? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of with you. A lot of people are like, it's B2B. Are you ready? I'm like, that doesn't mean it's boring. So I think there's that stigma still, unfortunately, but I feel like it's shifted quite a bit as of late because I feel like B2B, everyone had this, I guess, like button up tie feel, and it's not that anymore. I'm sure that exists, but I feel like the world has kind of evolved a bit more, and the way we communicate as humans, we realize we're not stuffy,
Mhm.
like all of these things we have to kind of communicate that still talks to humans at the end of the day.
It's interesting. I was having a conversation with another content marketer this morning, actually. Goran Morkovich, he works at Freemius, and he was telling me about this content initiative they just did where they created this puppet, this like really gnarly looking puppet. It had like teeth. It was a sock puppet, but it had like teeth and stuff.
Okay, yeah, I think I know.
And you may have seen this, yeah. And they took it to this conference, and they were like having it talk to people, and they're creating all this content around this like goofy puppet talking to people. And he said it's been really effective. And we were speculating that because of the rise of AI and everything getting very like cookie cutter and uniform in what AI turns out, like maybe there's going to be this shift to more creativity in B2B marketing moving forward.
I feel like there has to be.
Yeah, because how else do you stand out?
I know exactly though what you're talking about because kind of tidbit for everyone here. I also want to thank Stephanie and kind of call out. I remember distinctly this day, like my LinkedIn algorithm was algorithm. It was doing its thing, which is perfect. And your post came up of how you created essentially a Slack forum for
That's
those
right.
who join. What is it? A content marketing leader, like a content
Yeah.
marketing leader group. And it's just a place for us to connect, pick each other's brains, all of that. And I was like, Stephanie, I'm in, add me. And so I saw that message pop up in that Slack channel the other day. And I was just like, that is very unique. I was like, this is an interesting story. So I love that you connected and kind of dug deeper with like what's going on there. Like, why the sock puppet?
It almost reminded me of, if you remember, in like 10, 15 years ago, those Quiznos ads with the hamsters with the teeth.
Who can forget those?
And they were so gross and weird, and like,
Memorable
I,
though.
I don't know if they were effective or not. I was just thinking I've never eaten at a Quiznos in my life, but like it was reminiscent of that, and it did make me wonder if like kind of like that gonzo marketing is going to come back in style, because AI can't, you can't replicate that. You can't
Yeah.
like fake that. That is just like real unfiltered weirdness.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm at the end of the day, there's trends and people fall into these things and you either excel at them and stand out or you're kind of like left with everyone else and you have to do something to break the mold, I feel like.
Yeah, and I think most marketers are creatives or ex-creatives, especially content marketers. I feel like every content marketer is a failed novelist. So
Yep. Definitely working on a book on my end. I feel like that's a
or
thing.
not failed novelist, just not yet successful
Work
novelist.
in progress. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. But also, what's interesting is I will say, going back to that Slack forum and channel, I think when you initially started it, correct me if I'm wrong, it was kind of a sense of like, let's build a community and also like, let's support each other because I know what it's like to be like a one man team or to be kind of, we got a small group here. It's not a massive, content team. Maybe we outsource or freelance things, but yeah, it can be kind of lonely and it's interesting because it is a very creative space. Can you kind of, I guess, talk to
Yeah.
me a little bit about what that's like for you on a daily basis? Obviously, I don't know your setup or kind of what inspired you also to create that forum.
Yeah, so my background is agency work. So up until I came to Rebrandly about 10 months ago, I had always worked at content agencies, which means I had always been surrounded by content marketers, which I now realize was like a really special thing, because you could ask your SEO questions and you could pitch ideas and you could make jokes about commas or whatever. And there were always people there to hear it. And then when I went in house, which I had really wanted to do, and I'm happy to be in house, but I'm the only content person, and we have a very small marketing team. It's only 3 people. And I just really missed having that community of content people that I could ask for advice or I could just like shoot the shit with. So that's why I wanted to start the community. And clearly, I was not the only person who felt that way, because I have gotten more engagement off of that one LinkedIn post than like everything else I've ever written on LinkedIn combined. It got
Yeah.
like 100,000 views, um,
Is it?
and thousands of people who wanted to join. And I was like, well, I can't moderate a community of thousands of people, so I kind of had to cherry pick a little bit. But I find it such a valuable resource just to like pool our collective knowledge and work together as B2B marketers to be better. I also wanted to be specifically for content leaders, like people who have to lead the content function at their company, because I think that in itself is a really unique challenge compared to content writing or content editing. Like
Agreed.
actually setting that strategy and selling it and tracking it and all of that is like a lot to learn.
Getting buy-in, what do you mean content contributes to ROI?
Yep.
Like the people dynamics too and people leading that comes into
Yeah.
it. Absolutely. It's a obviously people management is I call it a soft skill. I think it's not a hard skill. That's my hot take. But I feel like when you work in a creative space, specifically content, it is even more of a niche place because you have to kind of, I feel like, stand on two sides of like SEO and the like best practices and the setup and the parameters, and then the creative like connectivity juice of like humanity.
Yeah, absolutely. Like finding that balance is so hard. And I do feel like in this modern age of AI, it's getting even harder because in some sense we are writing for the machines a lot of the time.
Let's go there, Stephanie. While we're at it. I don't know if you feel this. I think I might have seen you say something, but finding this delicate balance too of whether it is chat or whatever it might be, whatever the AI system you might be utilizing as a tool, how to not lean on it too heavily, and also find a balance. Because at the end of the day, hey, like I won't lie, I can get some things done really quickly and more efficiently with these tools, but there's a part where you can start to lean too heavily on a tool, regardless of it being AI or not. So, where do you kind of see yourself in that balance?
The thing that I am scared of, but that I lose sleep over, is like outsourcing my thinking
Mm,
and losing those critical thinking skills. Because I have seen a couple articles circulating of some studies done that are said that people's cognitive reasoning skills are getting worse because of AI. I think, as writers and as strategists, like our irreplaceable talent is in our brains, right? That's our instrument.
mm-hmm.
And you have to keep it sharp or you're going to lose it. So for me, like I think about this a lot because I use Claude a lot in my work, and it does save a lot of time. And I do think that we have to be careful not to outsource all of our thinking to a
I'm with you.
tool because then we're not
Yeah.
going to be able to do it anymore. I mean, I don't think a year ago I was using AI a quarter of what I am now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to be really interesting over the next year, 2 years, 5 years to see how AI evolves in how we work with it. People have to navigate, like, yeah, what is that trade off? What is that balance for
Yeah.
you and your brain and your workload?
I mean, it's interesting to me because I don't think people should ever be like fully like absolutely not or scared, because I still remember the days of like Google launches a new algorithm, which I do all the time now. But I remember when Panda first rolled out. I remember when Pigeon was a thing and mobile Geddon was coming. That was like a huge thing everyone
Forgot
was
about
talking
that.
about.
Yep.
So, like, isn't it kind of wild? But like, we found our footing and it took time and no one really knew. We had a lot of predictions, but like, we found our footing. I do think AI is going to take a little, there's much more nuance there and where it's going to take a little bit more time, but I've learned to not be scared of these things essentially because
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays a Google algorithm change is like a blink, you
It's a
know,
Tuesday.
and we'll eventually hopefully hit that point with like AI where we have a we'll always have to evolve, but we have a more broader understanding of it and how to navigate. And I think we're in that process of figuring it out. I mean, now there's GEO, there's AEO, right, in regards to the standard
Yep.
or
Can't
stereotypical.
even decide what to try and call it yet.
Yeah, I mean, slightly nuanced, but also the same. And there's also the foundational elements of SEO. So it's and they all marry with content because content feeds everything. So it's an interesting place to be.
Absolutely. And I think, to your point about all of these Google updates and changes that we've rolled with over the years, I think it's a good reminder that, like, at its core, the point of content marketing is to create content that is helpful to people. And, like,
Mm,
all of this is just about, like, how do people find your content? But,
yeah,
like, at its core, like, it's still the same basic principles that we just got to remember.
yeah, they find it, but it still has to provide insight.
Yeah.
And how they find it is changing.
And I think, like, all of those shortcuts that people are pitching, like, last year or 2 years ago when everybody was all over programmatic SEO and we're all going to spin up like 10,000 pages. And it's like, oh no, wait, Google hates that. Like, that was a terrible idea. Like,
Pause.
okay, yeah, because there's no like silver bullet to any of it.
Yeah, I'm curious. whether it's AI or not, but at Rebrandly, kind of, is there a current campaign or project that y'all are working on that you're really kind of excited or proud about? I'd love to hear what's going on.
So, yeah, I've been working on a couple things. One is we just started doing some new videos. The first one we released, I think, last week, and they're really simple. They're just like talking head videos showcasing specific helpful product features.
Mm.
But I really love them because they're just useful and direct, and they're not full of marketing jargon or enterprise language. It's just like, hey, here's a really cool thing that you can do with Rebrandly. You can edit your links after you post them, and they've been getting really good engagement. So I'm excited about just, and I think it's because they are just like really authentic.
Yeah. Is that something that y'all have been leaning a little bit more into as of late?
Yeah, I mean, we've done some videos in the past that were a lot more corporate, more like
Or
advertising style. But we've been experimenting with these talking heads, and that's a new thing, and that's pretty
yeah.
fun. And then
And
the
short,
other big,
I'm assuming, right? Like short and
yeah,
hard.
real short. The other big thing that I've been working on that I'm seeing good results is just going back and refreshing the 10 years of content that are on the Rebrandly blog.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
the first full-time content hire they've ever had, but there's 10 years of content on the blog. So
Yeah.
as you can imagine, there is a lot of cleanup to do.
Yeah, a lot of perhaps just some deleting.
Yeah, deleting a lot of weird GIFs and stuff that were in old blog posts, a lot of 5 to 10 year old SEO stuff, and
Right, like just transitions that the brand has gone through themselves. I've been there, and it is that's deep work, but I love personally when you go into that deep work mode. I love putting on just like some classical music or something and just you're in the zone. Like it's a weirdly good time.
I have this one playlist on Spotify that's Game of Thrones music. So it's all
Yes.
instrumental, but it's like so epic. And you just put that on and like really just like dig into it. And I love it because you can see the results, in Ahrefs fairly quickly. So it just feels very productive to fix up that old stuff.
I'd love to also hear kind of your progression, your transitions throughout your career. Is there, I guess, any advice that or career lesson that you wish you knew sooner, or not necessarily? I'm just kind
Yeah.
of curious.
I mean, I think for me, the big thing that I always tell people who are younger than me is like, it's okay not to have a plan. Life is not linear. Like I said, like I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I had a whole career doing travel writing. And then I have this whole different career now doing content marketing. And maybe in 10 years, I'll be doing something completely different. I'll be a children's librarian or a postal worker, or every time I work at my local coffee shop, I think about quitting my job and working at the bookstore coffee shop. So like it's okay, to boomerang a bit and like enjoy the adventure.
I like that. I mean, it's fun. It for me personally, it's kind of funny that you said that because our company had an offsite and we had done like personality assessments, but more in depth, like workshop, so that we could take a look at ourselves and also how we work with one another. It was very, very cool. I was not shocked by any of my results, but one of them in particular that's like a little low on me specifically was spontaneity. And everyone's like, really? I was like, no, I'm not the most spontaneous person. I wish I were. But it wasn't like what you think spontaneous. It was more of like trusting your gut or just like making those impulse gut decisions. Whereas like you saying that, life's not linear and just kind of like it's okay to not have a plan. I'm like, that's something that they were like, what skills could you tune up? And I was like, that. Um, because it's like it's sometimes it's difficult. You get so like everything's got I got to do this, the plan. When really it's like sometimes no plan is a plan, if that makes
Yeah,
sense. Like there is a plan, but it's go with the flow or just trust your
yeah,
gut.
sometimes you got to leave room for like the universe to
Yeah.
push you around.
And I think, obviously I know a bit, I follow you. We stay in touch on the Content Leaders Forum on Slack. But I'd love for you to kind of share also like what's something that maybe most people wouldn't know about you.
Man, I feel like I talk so much. I feel like everybody knows everything about me.
I've learned a lot, so no.
um, so my mom, when I was a kid, used to write romance novels. It is actually a published romance novelist, which
Wow.
got me made fun of a lot when I was in elementary school. But now I think is very cool.
That is cool.
There's my little known fact.
Interesting. Uh, Did that spark like creativity? Do you think that's where things came from, or?
Possibly. I mean, yeah, she was a writer. I always wanted to be a writer. My dad is very like a spontaneous, goofy guy. So like, kind of got it from both of them.
Yeah, I don't know where mine came from. My parents worked in business and finance, so I I always laugh. I'm like, where did I come from? I don't really know. Well, Stephanie, I know we're kind of almost at time. It's been honestly a pleasure and hopefully fun, where you
Yeah,
just
very fun.
kick back, chat about obviously things in content and what's going on in your journey, and then just complete randomness. So, yeah, it's been a pleasure having you, and thanks so much for joining us and really just sharing your story
Yeah,
holistically.
thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Is there somewhere where people can follow along of what you're doing or what the brand is doing holistically?
Yeah, I mean, for me, you can follow me on LinkedIn if you want. Stephanie Yoder. If you search me, I'll come up. There's other ones out there, but I've got the URL. So, and yeah, we are doing some fun things at Rebrandly. It's a fun company. It's a link shortener and link management product. Actually, really useful for marketers. So give it a look.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. And I appreciate it. It was fun passing the mic on over to you.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome. Big thanks to Stephanie for joining us on the mic today and sharing her journey from travel blogger to B2B content leader. Make sure to follow her on LinkedIn and check out Rebrandly.com and all their socials to see what she and team are up to. Next up, we have conversations with experts in AI, SEO, branding, UX, and more. Catch you next time.